Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot, and today we have another exciting preview for you. This is of course the Aerosoft Twin Otter for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've been very excited for this release. It's been something long anticipated by a lot of people who watch this channel, and including myself. We have flown the Twin Otter in X-Plane 11, and of course I previously used the Aerosoft Twin Otter in Flight Simulator X all those years ago, and I was just so looking forward to seeing it arrive in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and of course here it is in all its glory. This is the perfect sort of aeroplane to enjoy some of the scenery. However, I've taken it to somewhere without too much scenery. We're going to be flying around the Maldives. Any regular viewers of the channel would have probably predicted that's exactly where I was going to take it as soon as I could. So we have to try out the float plane version of the DHC Twin Otter from I think this is the 300 version with the floats. There's also amphibious versions, several versions. I'm going to show you the different versions included in the package at some point in this video. What we're going to do today is just have a look at it, run through some checklists, start it up, take it for a bit of a spin and fly it around. Now it's important to note that this is in beta still, so it is not the final release version by any means that we're going to see today. It is under work still, so they are improving it all the time. So there may be a few bugs, a few bits of sound, or a few animations that are missing, so don't panic if you see anything you don't like. It's still very much a work in progress. The team are working very hard to get it ready for release, which we of course now know is the 19th of January 2022, so it is on the way very soon, so very exciting. But of course, as we can already see from the visual model, absolutely lovely. They seem to have worked hard with the float model to make sure that it is usable in the water. I've already taken it for a bit of a taxi around, so yeah, it's coming along. And look at that, you can see the oil off the engines, and then it runs back over the elevators. Something really impressive about this package for me has been how many variations they've included. So we've got lots and lots of different versions: skydiving, cargo, the 100, the 300. Yeah, it's really nice, and an incredibly in-depth manual. They clearly know their stuff about the Twin Otter over at Aerosoft, because it's a hugely complete manual with tutorial flights and information about every system you can imagine, far more than I'll probably be able to learn myself. But if you wanted to go into the details, it's all in there. But yeah, as you can see from the modeling, we've got some we've come to expect this from Microsoft Flight Simulator, but still, it's always great when we see another aeroplane brought to life in this sim to this level of detail. And you've got a different texturing. Look, even the oil shines the light back differently at you. Absolutely lovely. And this airplane is going to be just great for flying around some of the more interesting parts of the world, which Microsoft Flight Simulator does so well with its scenery. But yeah, we're going to try it out on water. I haven't done much water flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It has recently been updated by the Asobo, so it should be pretty nice. As ever, I am a real-world Airbus pilot, so I'll give you my perspectives as much as I can on real aviation. I have never flown a Twin Otter in real life, although I have been on a float plane Twin Otter in real life. So I have a very limited exposure to the real airplane, but I have been a passenger in one, and it was an experience I won't be forgetting anytime soon. Right, enough of that chatting away. Let's get into the video. So of course, here we are on the flight deck, and as you can see, we've got very nice texturing, full 3D cockpit. I mean, what else would you expect at this point? It's absolutely lovely, and this is such a unique airplane to sit in. You've got this joint yoke. I mean, all yokes typically are connected, but it's still something to see it where it's so clearly joined up like that, and then it goes through this center sort of mount into the floor. I think you can. I'm not sure what I'm clicking when I do that. I need to be careful. Like I say, this is a beta version. We have the control lock, which we can get rid of now. Just get that out of the way, and you can hear it getting stowed away. You can click on the doors, open those up, which reveals some lovely steps to the very inviting tropical blue water. It does also make that propeller look a lot closer than I had originally expected. So yeah, it's feel much safer with it closed, though I am somewhat dubious as to how much difference that makes, having the small piece of glass between you and that propeller. But there we go. Yeah, lovely. And then we can head into the cabin, fully modeled cabin, as you would hope. And this is just one version. This is the sort of normal passenger variant, but there are the skydiving versions, cargo versions as well. You've also got some tundra options and other things like that. But this would be a typical sort of passenger setup. Right, let's jump into our seat, and we can aim to fire up a checklist. So unusual things about the Twin Otter include the obviously having thrust levers on the roof, which the manual says is in order to make sure that it can be simpler to get the connections to the wings, because obviously the engines are mounted up there out on those wings as normal. So shortens the connections rather than having to route it around the cabin or underneath the floor, things like that. We've also got the flap lever up here, presumably for a similar reason, and we've got lots of the switches back here. I've spent a lot of time when I first streamed this airplane trying to figure out where everything was, but yeah, if you're not sure, there's a high probability it's up here, but just to make it a bit more difficult, there is another panel hidden over here. But this thankfully is relatively minor stuff. This is the windshield stuff and wipers and whatnot. Got all the instruments duplicated, so this is flown with 2 pilots normally. That's the traditional way to see it done. And you've got even an autopilot, which is a really interesting one. So we'll see if we can remember how to use it here at some point today, perhaps. Lots of messages because, of course, this is a turboprop, so we have to be very careful with the propellers. We not only have a torque indicator, torque pressure up here, we also have a NP indicator, which shows us the RPM of that propeller. And then we have the T5, so we have the temperature gauge. So lots and lots of dials for what are quite small engines. They're PT6 engines, very common sort of turboprop engine on this size of aeroplane. Let's load up a checklist then. So I'm going to bring it up here, 17 items, but control locks we have released. Parking brake, well, not relevant to us today. Power levers, we'll put them to idle. Let's make sure they are definitely there. And idle control lever cut off. I'm already lost. Let's see, that one isn't highlighted. The outside air temperature is definitely above 10 here, so we can put the prop lever to full forwards. There we go, drag those. Oh, not that one, drag those there. Probably worth assigning these. Is something I will be doing at some point to make life a bit easier, because it is a bit of an awkward position trying to get to them. So we put them forward because we don't want them to be in the feather position for startup, it seems, in these weather conditions. Starter switch off, which is up here, which is correct. And we've got the ignition off, generator off, aux fuel pump off, and then on and on it goes. So as you can see, the full checklist, loads and loads of switches. Nothing's quite as you'd expect. I mean, it's yeah, there's the engine ignition in normal, but yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, and you'll have fun reading the manual if you want to really get stuck in. But what I'm going to do is we'll skip ahead. I'll get the plane powered up, and then we'll start up those engines. Okay, so that was the aircraft powered up now. So we basically, it's not that difficult. External or battery, put the switch to battery, and then we've also put the DC master on, and that's provided us a DC power. But we are, of course, sitting on batteries, slowly draining those, so we don't want to do this for too long. So it's time to get those engines up and running. And again, checklist is all here and listed, which is good, and hopefully well, I'm sure that we'll see more improvements on this over the coming week. I wonder what happens if you do that. Does anything change? Hopefully not. We are just floating on water. There's no wheels. This isn't amphibious. Right, starter switch goes to on. So that is up here. And yeah, we're going to choose the left or right engine. I'm going to start the, let's go right engine. That's going to spool it up. So starter switch, ignition. Ignition was already on, by the way. That is down here. It's on both. And now I've got NG at 12%. Can I find NG in time? There it is, NG. It's above 12. It's almost at 20. Idle control lever, low idle. So that is presumably talking about these, the fuel levers, because we have to, obviously need to turn those on. And we'll find, hopefully now that we get some fuel flow. There it is. And the engine starts to spool up. Yeah, I'm going to need to do a lot more studying to work out all of these switches. I'm basically working on my basic principles. Right, that's actually starting to move, so we haven't got it at low enough idle, it would appear. So I'm finding my engine giving us a bit too much thrust. I'm just going to reverse that one a little bit and hopefully swing the airplane around. It is a complete art trying to maneuver these float planes. When you see the pilots who operate them regularly doing it, it's really amazing stuff. They have a huge amount of skill that they've developed whilst doing it. But we should shortly have things back to where we want them, because that is our second engine now spooling up. You'll notice Aerosoft have actually provided a water rudder that's sort of virtually sitting there, so you don't have to move it in and out. The real aircraft can be manoeuvred very well using the engines, I believe. I don't think it uses a water rudder as much, and the pilots are very skilled at using the two engines to manoeuvre it around the water. But that's not possible, I believe, right now in Microsoft Flight Simulator due to the asymmetric reverse, although I was having a bit of luck earlier, actually. So, yeah, you actually have the water rudder built in as well, which is pretty nice. It does make it a bit less of a handful to manoeuvre, because like I say, it's amazing watching the crews who regularly fly this doing it. So let's put the flaps out to 20, which is what we would use for a water takeoff. Let's just try that. Let's see if I can spin it around. I'm just going to reverse engine number 1, and then we'll get that nose around. Yeah, it works pretty well. Look at that. Not sure if that's screaming or the or the flaps. Let's try the other engine. Do the opposite. Yeah, so it does seem to work asymmetrically in reverse, and then let's move that one forward, see if we can get the nose. So let's see if it works in the forward thrust as well. Yeah, seems to be possible. More possible than I had expected, actually. So for takeoff off the water, we're going to use flaps 20. We're going to rotate at around about, well, as the nose lifts out the water, and this is, I've taken it straight from the Twin Otter manual they've included. As the nose lifts out the water, we will ever so slightly push a bit of forward pressure to keep the nose down and allow the airplane to continue without dragging the back of the floats along the water. Then it should accelerate, and then we can rotate out of the water at around about 65 to 70 knots. That way, if we have an engine failure, we can still control the aircraft because we'll have enough air over the rudder. So we'll fly along about 70 knots. Passing 70, we'll get the flaps in a stage to 10, and then we'll keep in ground effect, accelerating the aircraft until 90 knots, and then we can climb away. And there's a good reason to do that. It isn't this airplane isn't overpowered, so it does benefit from that. And you've also got a lot of drag because those floats, they're like big speed brakes. Really, they do sit out in the way. So let's just see if there's any more checklists I should be doing before we do this. We've done the nav lights, parking brake release, and then brake switch in as check. So we need to set the stabilizer trim. So we get a flap indicator up here, and a stabilizer trim. There must be that must be visible somewhere. Yes, that's down here. So that is set for takeoff. Flaps are set. Flight controls. Let's check those are all working. That lever, by the way, nose wheel steering. Obviously, no use for us in the float plane variant. And we've done our rudders working very nicely. Fuel quantity. So the fuel system on this aircraft, very interesting. It's actually limited in the sense that it doesn't have the ability to gravity feed. The fuel is not in the wings. It is located in the fuselage. So all the fuel has to be pumped to the engines. So that's why you actually we've got our normal pumps, forward boost pumps, and we've also got emergency boost pumps to make sure that in an emergency we can get fuel to the engines, which is quite an unusual setup. Altimeter is set, fuel we've got, so aux fuel pump on. So let's see if I can get this one right. That's going to be these, I think. Forward boost, yeah. And then we'll put on the standby pumps as well, just in case. Seems sensible to me. Anti-ice we do not need, thankfully, or propeller de-ice. I imagine the aircraft in the Maldives don't spend much time using these systems. Strobe lights on, oil temperature should be in the green, which it is. Flight limiter checked, heating control off. Idle control lever, high idle. I will find that lever at some point. And here's the takeoff. We're going to use 53 or 47 psi for takeoff, and we want to see about 101.5% on the NG, 2000 RPM. Right, let's give it a go then. So let's bring up the power. The airplane will drift with the wind, of course, and it can be quite hard to judge whether you're going in a straight line, especially without obstacles in your peripheral vision. I think we want to talk somewhere here. You can feel it bouncing off the water, so I'm just going to hold the nose slightly up. Airspeed's alive. There's 60 knots, so we'll let it get into the air. There we go. And should let it accelerate from here instead of putting up. Flaps to 10. I think we've cleared the water. Ground effect probably a bit there. And there's 90 knots, and we'll climb away. Making sure our rudder is now straight. Get a trim light, actually, you can see there. I think that was probably the right amount of power. Yeah, lots of spare power. I haven't loaded it very heavily. The loading simply seems to be done through, at the moment, this. So yeah, it's to be finalised. The loading setup. Oh, we've got passengers for this one. So we're climbing away. Let's see if we can, obviously being Airbus pilots, immediately try and set up some automatics to save us from from controlling the airplane. So the reason I want to show you this is so that you don't feel concerned using this aircraft on longer routes or something slightly different. So we can set the altitude 2,500. You've got a normal sort of heading bug and course bar. So if we set the heading bug round and press engage heading, and there go our flight directors, but that's not enough for the autopilot. We want the yaw damper on as well, and then we can engage the autopilot, which is this little up-down switch. And now it's going to bring the nose down. You can see it retrimming, bring the flaps up to 0. Should have been there already probably. And we're making a right turn round. So quite an old school sort of style flight director there. I quite like that. Yeah, there we go. That's lining up, banking us round. So that's better. I've now got the RPM assigned. I'm using my speed brake lever on the Thrustmaster TCA for this one. So let's bring those props back. You don't want to cruise or climb even at the maximum RPM. It's very noisy. So bring those back, and we'll start setting up sort of cruise power and torque. And well, stay there at 2,600. Out mode. Obviously, you've got options for nav. It can fly and approach, and an ILS, of course. And we've got all sorts of different lights here. Trim in motion. All these warnings work. Lots of these systems modeled, which is great. I think I haven't found any that haven't worked yet. Really, we can look at the indicator, check the voltage and the load, check on the battery as well in the middle. You know, they've got the warning light system, fire detection system, which we can test. Overspeeds on the props. Yeah, it's all here. It's all as you'd expect, really. Very nice. So to give you an idea of what's available, here we have the DHC6-100 floats with passenger version, and then we've got wheels cargo version on the 100 and a wheels passenger version of the 100. Then we have the 300 amphibian for passengers, floats for passengers, and then the short nose version. Then we have the ski cargo. We've got the tundra cargo and well as tundra passengers, and then they've got the different propellers. So we've got the wheels and cargo for the 3-blade, and then we've got a wheels and cargo 4-bladed propeller, and then we've got the para jumper and the wheels passengers. So lots of different versions for us to have a look at as we explore the different Twin Otters out there. Here we have the skydiving version, and this is the door. It's sort of a plastic clear door that's fitted to these aircraft. Great to have it included, and of course it is animated as well, so you get this great view out, and then you click down here and up it goes. The sounds, like I said, are not final yet, so there's a few wonky sounds at the moment with this, so hopefully, well, I'm sure that'll be sorted out. But yeah, great. It gives you a real sense of the height when you look out and see the wind turbines down there. I do, once again, remain impressed by Microsoft Flight Simulator's auto-generated scenery, but there it is. So yeah, that's great. You've got the different cabin with all the skydivers can sit at the side, and as we come up into the cockpit, we actually have the switch to control the lights for the skydivers. So whether you are able to jump or not, or whether you're standing by, you press these, and a great detail. Us simmers love these details, and they know that when they make these. So they go, there's a light back there, it's on green, so I can set it to green, and if we set it to amber, which is the standby sort of light, there it is. So that's great. That does actually work. Really impressive, that. no surprise then, we can of course use our inbuilt GPS here. All very straightforward. If we wanted to choose our airport, we can select it. For example, we could put in Malé Airport and so on. Not something we're going to do today because it's quite a way away. But there we go, VRMM. Oh, this is always a struggle for me. There it is, Smile International, activate. Oof, we made it. And now we have it in the GPS. I can come over here and I should be able to hit nav, but we're drifting off the wrong way. This will be because we need to change it from Vorlock to GPS. There we go. And now the nav mode will follow the HSI, the horizontal situation indicator. So this is very, very much a GA style aeroplane. It's basically a GA plane, but it's got the performance, the safety, the redundancy of an airliner. Plus we have a more advanced autopilot than you get in typical general aviation. So yeah, that's where it's going to be. It's going to be good fun. I think people will have good fun flying out some different routes. What I'm going to do is let's head over to this sort of town here, and maybe we'll go and land nearby there. So let's put it back into, well, let's bring the heading bug rounds, and we'll go back into heading. See if I can figure out how to get the autopilot to descend. I used to know this. It's not letting me change anything. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing wrong with that. So that's something I will have to go and study. Right, let's head in for our arrival then. So what I'm going to do for that is disconnect the autopilot. Luckily it was assigned to the same key. Get rid of the heading. Right, let's begin our descent. So we're going to aim to land. I'm going to land back on ourselves over this island over here. So let's bring the airplane round. Just talking about how it handles at the moment. It's a very stable airplane, quite typical for a high wing aircraft. It's obviously got more drag with the floats, but I'll be curious at some point. We'll try out the different setups. But yeah, this is without the autopilot, and as you can see, very responsive. Very easy to fly. It's actually quite stable, quite sensitive in pitch certainly, so it's easy to over pitch or over correct on the pitch, so possibly worth maybe I might tune some sensitivity, but in roll much more stable. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was a sensitive airplane in pitch, because that could be quite realistic due to the fact that the propellers point right over that elevator. So obviously the effect of the elevator control surface is exacerbated by not only the normal airflow, but the prop wash as well. Love the black and white propellers, obviously designed to be visible so that you can handle driving it around near piers and all sorts, because obviously these things park up right on the side. Okay, let's start descending then. So I'm going to bring the power back, and I'm going to bring that prop RPM back up. The reason we do this is you get more drag out of the propellers by bringing them up, but also you're going to find that it will give you more power for the go around if you need it, of course. I need to learn all about these flight directions and so on. The automatics they feel like it's a slightly different fit to the last version of the last Twin Otter I flew in a simulator, but there we go. So we'll try and land back on this island. So I'm going to get the speed back to 100 knots now. So that's the power coming back to idle. You'll get a huge amount of drag. The float version descends more quickly than the normal wheel version, of course, again due to that drag. So we'll trim it back for 100 knots. Here we go, getting our descent in. So the technique for landing this, we're going to land, I'm going to try for, actually we'll do a full flap, or 37.5 degree, not quite full flap I don't think, landing 70 to 80 knots. Is that full 37? Yeah, it's almost 40. So a lot of flap, 70 to 80 knots, and we're going to simply just hold it off, and with some power bring it down onto the water. We don't want to do this with idle power. Don't want to dig into the water, of course. If there's any swell, we'd have to land on top of the waves, but Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't simulate waves to a large extent at the moment, and also, as you can see, it's a lovely calm day here, as you would expect in the Maldives, of course. Right, here we go then. So getting that speed back, and we didn't get the speed back at all. Raising the nose. As it gets to 100 knots, we can put the first bit of flap out. We'll go to flap 10. I imagine we'll quickly lose speed. There you go, 500 feet. The radio altimeter does work. 100 knots. Bring the bit of flap out. Flaps to 20. And we want an approach speed somewhere in the region of 70 to 80 knots. So I'm going to start bringing the power in as we get the last bit of flap out. There's 80 knots. Power coming in. Power coming in. If you're back at idle in a turboprop with the flaps out, yeah, you run out of steam pretty quickly. And we'll bring the last bit of flap out. Somewhere there. Yeah, I think that is pretty much full flap then. So we've got just over 70 knots, getting a bit slow, so keeping the power on. Now trying to keep fixed on that point in the horizons to try and keep us in a straight line. Bit of yaw from the torque from the propellers.
50, 40,
Starting to see the water texture.
30,
Torque back a bit, about 10% apparently for landing on water.
20, 10,
Okay, just holding it here. There's touchdown. That's probably a bit firm. We'll bring it back to idle, keeping the nose up. I don't think much the water physics in Flight Simulator are 100% accurate yet, but there we go. We've made it down. So we want it to settle into the water. There it goes. I do like the wake effects though. They are nice. And we've made it back down again. Look at those flaps. Really, really big sort of barn door flaps on this thing. Excellent. So that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is a really interesting airplane to get in the simulator, and it's going to open up a lot of different routes and exciting things for people to do, I'm sure. Lots and lots of systems in it already, but yeah, we can see a few rough edges, so looking forward to those being polished out. Just I think the last bits of the sound are being worked on at the moment, and a few more animations, which is just lovely. Visual model already coming on really nicely. It looks absolutely stunning, as you would expect, really. Nice as well to get some of these fun liveries included with it, so that's really nice. I think it's going to be great fun to take this on some of the routes, and maybe we'll do some of the things we did with it before on the channel in X-Plane. Try them out in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we can see some of the new scenery. There'll be plenty more videos to come on the channel, including guides of the Airbus, as well as different airliners and more live streams, so do please subscribe if you'd like to see those. Otherwise, we'll see you again in another of those videos or live streams in the future. Thank you, bye bye.